there is a notion of bullshit jobs, and I think we should try and define this bullshit this idea of bullshit jobs, and how can workplaces prevent creating bullshit jobs in the first place?
So bullshit jobs was it's an amazing idea. It was created by David Graeber, and essentially what bullshit jobs is hollow, meaningless, purposeless jobs. And now there are entire sections. I don't want to demean any particular job, so I'm not going to name. You're free to guess what these job types are. But there are jobs out there that people, especially younger people who care about the planet, who are very mission driven in their own lives, not just in the organization where they work. They find that why do these jobs even exist? And surveys have been done. Gallup keeps doing these surveys every now and then to ask employees, do you feel connected to your company's mission? Do you feel that your job exists for a reason? And a lot of young people will say, we just don't see it.
Yeah.
Right? This doesn't mean that it is that for everybody, but there are certain kinds of jobs that young people find very difficult to justify.
So whoever could answer this, so could this be just as simple a framework that you ask your team members that is your job
meaningful to you
That's and the purpose that you're on?
Absolutely.
And if the answer comes no,
then you should basically close down and start a different company. No, I'm kidding. But I think if the answer is no, then again you have to examine why is the answer no. Is it really because that job truly should have no reason to exist? And even in 2022, it is possible that there are a lot of jobs like that which really have no reason to exist. Or is it that it's a mismatch? And this person is just in the wrong job. Maybe they got slated into a particular role because of their qualifications or whatever, but now they've discovered that they probably want to do something else. But they're finding it very difficult to make a horizontal switch. So sometimes it could be just that, and sometimes maybe somebody else is very happy doing the work that this person is doing. So those should be easy fixes, but they're actually not. Many organizations make it really hard for employees to switch between functions horizontally. For a startup, that should be easier. So yes, it is as easy as asking that question. But as with all such questions, please do a little bit of soul searching and homework before you ask that question. You should be prepared.
Could you frame that question again?
When you, how does this whole exercise begin? Say you do a survey of employees.
Okay.
And you tell people to be honest and say, if you find that your job is meaningless, then please disclose who you are so that we can have a conversation with you. Now, first of all, people will not disclose if they're not confident that this information will not be misused against them. So we are assuming that this exercise is happening in an environment of trust.
This is meaningless to them or meaningless to the mission of the company or the organization itself?
I think you should ask them whether it is meaningful for them. Because if the idea is to improve employee experience, then we should not worry about whether the job is important for the organization, right? So ask them, do you find meaning and purpose in your job? What gets you going? What is it about your job that really excites you? What is it about your job that really gets you down? And sometimes you don't even need very radical fixes, right? Sometimes it could be just snipping some parts of a person's job description and adding some other parts. So the core remains the same, but you just add and subtract. Sometimes it could require putting that person in a different role altogether. And make realistic commitments. Is it possible for you to do this switch overnight? In most cases, that's not possible. We've been talking a lot about the fact that you need to have regular review discussions with your teammates. That's a great forum to have these conversations. But don't just be the manager that says yes to everything just because you want to please your employee, you don't want to have a conflict situation. Make realistic commitments, And these things, there has to be a match between the organization's needs and the employee's needs. And most adult people, even Gen Zers, understand that, right? So, communication.
I think this maybe adding a question to an employee NPS sort of a survey could give an organization a good feedback of what percentage of jobs that they are creating are meaningless jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a word of caution there.
Uh-huh.
These days, this survey has been, this sort of exercise has been automated in a lot of companies. So you have chatbots that pose as the CEO's personal assistant.
Okay.
And they will pop up in an employee's inbox and say, hey, we are here to ask you how you're doing. Very well-intentioned exercises. And a new person, a new employee, especially a young employee, who may have really idolized your company. I mean, look, a lot of people are very, they're not cynical when they join a workforce. They are very motivated. They want to make a difference. So if that person comes into the office and is greeted by a mail like that, it can be a very empowering feeling that the company cares. The company is asking me,
Right.
How they can make this better for me.
Right.
So you give your opinion. You lay your heart bare, and then nothing happens. The chirping of crickets. 6 months later, you get another mail and you take the survey again. And this time, maybe they will listen. Nothing happens. What is happening there is somebody in the people team is checking a KRA box. And they don't care whether these suggestions or feedback from the employees are getting implemented. Maybe because the company hasn't even defined whose job it is to implement all this. Or maybe because it is the last thing on the company's priority list. They just want to appear like they're doing the right thing. But this is far more destructive than not doing a survey.
I mean, I can speak on behalf of some of those people leaders that everything begins with measure. Right?
Yeah.
You could only improve once you know that you're measuring and where you are. So this idea of So this idea of employee NPS starts by asking whether they are happy at their workplaces. We should also talk about whether they are finding their jobs as purposeful and meaningful, and asking for some qualitative feedback as well of where they think the organization can do better.
Yeah.
Now, getting that number, and then if a leader do not aspire to improve that number.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to create an objectification here of what you could do with those numbers, right? So let's suppose your ENPS score comes out to be about 40. But as people leader, do you aspire to be 80?
Yeah.
Right? And if you aspire to be 80, those qualitative feedbacks that you have received from your workforce, from your team members, are your action points to make it 80.
Exactly.
Now, to walk the talk, to make that happen, is the hardest part. Correct. Measure is easy part.
Correct.
So what I'm hearing from you is that if you go radio silence after your measurement, and then if you repeat this behavior a couple of times, then the employees will
they will simply click on spam. This is what happens.
They will read it that this is not an actionable organization. They are not a compassionate organization, and this is probably not going to help them. And they'll start. And what you will see is that the participation will start dripping.
And they will think that this is not just a bullshit job, but a bullshit company. So
avoid at any circumstance is that whenever you measure, you come back to your employees, you tell them what did you receive, you tell them the actionables of what you want to fix.
Yeah.
Don't go radio silence on them.
A lot of it just occurred to me that a lot of these conversations that we've been having now, it reminds me of one of the first job interviews of my life. It was with TCS, and it was an instructional design job.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with instructional design, it's all about breaking a problem statement down to its nth level.
Wow.
Right. And I remember at the interview I was asked how I would make an omelette.
Nice.
And I started by saying, I will, heat up the pan and, break some eggs and said, hang on, but where did you get the eggs from? Oh, I got them from the fridge. All right, so start from there. Okay, I'll take these eggs out from the fridge, then I will break them in a pan. Hang on, where did you get the pan from? And how did you light up the gas? And did you stir the eggs? And it was just listening to this as a 20-something-year-old, it was ridiculous. Like, who talks like this? Who works like this? But we do work exactly like this.
Yeah.
And I think most organizations forget that when they design something, when they want to implement something, they are so obsessed with implementing it or the appearance of implementing it that they do multiple step jumps. And often the casualty, the most common casualty is communication. And it can be exhausting. So for instance, in this instance, what should ideally happen, what I would like to see as an employee, is when a survey like that props up on my email, there is also a clear statement there of what we are going to do with this data, how long might this take, perhaps even a straightforward line like, hey, don't get frustrated if you don't see anything happen for the first 6-8 months, because all of this is takes time. Honest human conversation. Just reveal your cards. No need for secrecy, no need to lead people in the wrong direction. So I think when, even in the non-profit world, we often talk about, in advocacy also, we often talk about this obsession with interventions. Everyone wants to run an intervention. Everyone wants to run a campaign. Nobody wants to sit down and do the thinking and the boring parts. But those boring parts can really make or break your campaign.
Yeah, this is very powerful, this concept of bringing instructional design to your workplace communication.
Design thinking, yes.
Which is essentially not assuming things, but being very over-communicating of what are the next steps and how did we reach there, breaking down the framework of what you're using for them so that they can become more participatory.
Absolutely. And when you start doing this exercise, the next thing that you realize is that the process of making an omelette will look vastly different for an able-bodied person and for a disabled person.